Here with my 30th episode about the now terminated criminal investigation into Operation Underground Railroad. This report is about Tim Ballard's big lie, now on the big screen, exposing the Sound of Freedom hoax. If you Google Sound of Freedom, you will see two related movies, Liam Neeson's Taken and Sylvester Stallone's Rambo, Last Blood. Ballard's take on Taken, he says Sound of Freedom is Taken, but it's real.
So that people see this is actually real. This is not just some Taken movie. This is Taken, but it's real.
No. Sound of Freedom is like Taken. It's fiction. Here's an overview of the main topics in this report. Tim Ballard began running his child sex slave rescue organization at least 9 months before quitting his federal job with Homeland Security's investigations. At the outset, his new company was set up to produce a television series, or movie, about a team of heavily armed former soldiers rescuing kidnapped child sex slaves overseas. Television personality Glenn Beck began raising hundreds of thousands of dollars seed money before Ballard quit and formed OUR. Ballard concocted a false story about the rescue of a kidnapped young brother and sister before he left HSI. The original false story was about a brother and sister who lived in the United States, were kidnapped, and taken across the border to Mexico to serve as sex toys for Mexican drug cartel sex parties. The original story had Ballard infiltrating the parties and calling in a jump team of armed ex-commandos to rescue the kidnapped kids. That story was repurposed when the screenplay for Sound of Freedom was written at a cabin in Park City in 2017. Whether true or pure fiction, the Sound of Freedom storyline helped propel the film to a huge box office success. Even while Hollywood elites panned the film, Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel got an ex-presidential red carpet welcome at the other end of the country, as well as Donald Trump's commitment to seek the death penalty for child sex traffickers if reelected. Not brought up at Trump's Bedminster screening, why Ballard left OUR just prior to the film's July 4th premiere.
Now, one of the other things that the media have picked up on of late is that you are no longer officially a part of Operation Underground Railroad.
Over the last 10 years, I've sat on the board of 4 organizations. I've been the CEO of 2. I founded one. So, but I can't be an employee of any of them. There's too much red tape. There's too many legalities associated, conflicts of interest to be able to open up and do everything I need to do. So this was not something sudden. I was talking to board members 8 months ago or longer about feeling a need to be more independent the bigger we got. And so I will not be an employee of any one single nonprofit organization because that only limits what I can do.
Okay, let's get started. This report is about Ballard's fairy tales, especially the whopper he dreamt up for the main plot of his massively successful movie. I'll begin at the beginning, talking about events that led up to Ballard getting into the child sex slave rescue business. Ballard was still with Homeland Security in 2013 when 2 companies would be formed. One, a for-profit to make the movies, and the other, a non-profit to run the rescue operations that would be filmed for the movies. In the spring of 2013, Ballard, Glenn Beck, and 2 Utah movie makers strategized about a child sex slave rescue reality TV series. In March, OUR claimed its first raid occurred in Honduras. It was a false claim. In September, the Utah entity, Operation Underground Railroad, was formed. Then in October, the Utah company, the Abolitionist LLC, was created to produce the series. Then also in October, Glenn Beck began raising tax-deductible donations for OUR. And finally, in December, Ballard quit HSI. Ballard had already been a guest on Glenn Beck's television show to publicize his Mormon faith-promoting book, a book written while still working for Homeland Security. Near the same time, 3 movie makers, Gerald Molen, who won an Academy Award for co-producing Schindler's List with Steven Spielberg, Darren Fletcher, and Chet Thomas were working with Beck to produce a children's show for Beck's cable channel. Under Beck's guidance, Ballard, the government agent, and the filmmakers would conceptualize a dramatic TV series about rescuing children forced into prostitution. The original concept was for heavily armed ex-military jump team members to find and rescue children who have been kidnapped and forced into sexual slavery, and of course capture the action on camera. Emphasis was on kidnapping and slavery.
I think we have a solution, and it's a solution you can be a part of. It is called Operation Underground Railroad. It's a team of specialists, former CIA agents, former special agents, former Navy SEALs, former Green Berets. They all have a unique skill set for extracting people, in this case, children, from the sex trade. They are the Underground Jump Team.
We find children that have been kidnapped, used for sexual slaves, and we go get them, and we take them to a better life. I'm telling you, we are the people who do that. We can go in there and extract these kids.
Even before there was an OUR, Beck used talking points that Ballard would pick up, such as calling trafficking the fastest-growing criminal enterprise, and claiming that human trafficking is a $32 billion a year business, which Ballard now says is up to $150 billion. At first, Glenn Beck wanted to broadcast the series on his cable channel. Darren Fletcher said, Glenn pounded on his desk, pointed at Chet and me, and said, I know what I want. I want a television series, and I want you to produce it for me. They produced a teaser showing ex-Navy SEALs and Army Special Ops members undergoing training with handguns and automatic weapons. The team would swoop in to save kids from sex slavery rings around the world. 3 rescuers would be assisted by one unidentified undercover operative who would set up stings as a decoy bad guy pedophile seeking child sex or buying sex slaves. The series would be titled The Abolitionists. Here, the series producers pose in front of Glenn Beck's studio in Texas, where the groundwork for the nonprofit Operation Underground Railroad and the for-profit Abolitionists was laid, and where fundraising began. Operation Underground Railroad was incorporated in September of 2013. Its purpose to rescue child sex victims. Todd Reynolds, Ballard's brother-in-law, was the incorporator. Tim Ballard was not listed as either a director or incorporator, likely because he was still employed by the federal government. The Abolitionists was formed in October 2013. Darren Fletcher and Chet Thomas set up the company. Beginning at least 2 months before OUR was incorporated, Beck was the first to solicit donations for Operation Underground Railroad and for the production company for the TV series. Utah's Udy family also invested $2.5 million in the series. OUR's first website was posted in October 2013. That was 2 months before Ballard quit government service. The website established OUR's mission, freeing children held captive. It said, "To the children who we pray for daily, we say, your long night is coming to an end. Hold on, we're on our way. And to those captors and predators, even you monsters who dare offend God's precious children, we declare to you, be afraid. We are coming for you. And to those who have read this so far, we plead with you, donate to our cause. Donate. We can't do this without you." The website introduced 4 team members: Jason Hepworth, former Army Special Ops; Aaron Thomas, also former Army Special Ops; Steve Hutch, ex-Navy SEAL; and an unknown team member whose video, the website says, is classified. The unknown team member whose video is classified was said to be ex-CIA. The mystery operative, of course, was Tim Ballard. His name likely is not used online yet because he was still working for Homeland Security when the website went live. OUR's first website had a link to recent operations. The first was in Honduras. OUR's October 2013 website describes its first mission that occurred in March 2013, 9 months before Ballard quit Homeland Security. It said, "Underground jump team members working near Honduras discovered a child victim after having been kidnapped and forced into sex slavery. There she was raped continually until she managed to escape back into her home country. Soon after her return, she was discovered by the underground jump team. The child tearfully said other children in the town were held captive and sold for sex. Underground jump team members deployed undercover to the Honduran town. There they identified the child sex ring. The leaders of the sex ring told the underground operatives that they sought to traffic the children to the United States in order to fill the child sex demand there. Playing along, underground operatives, in conjunction with local authorities, arranged for a meeting in which the child victims would be offered up for sale to the operatives playing the role of child sex brokers. 6 men were arrested. 7 minors were rescued. It's noteworthy that OUR did not exist at the time. Tim Ballard was involved in a raid that did occur, but as a federal agent. A Honduran newspaper was linked on OUR's October 2013 website. It reported on the bust in Spanish. Translated, it said, 5 members of a pimp gang were captured on Thursday night in Puerto Cortes in northern Honduras. The National Directorate of Special Investigation Services, in combination with other police departments, carried out the operation where it was possible to free 7 young minors and 2 adults who were being used in a prostitution network. At the very beginning, OUR made false claims. OUR operatives did not participate in the March 2013 Honduras takedown. Honduras law enforcement was assisted by an American nonprofit, Broken Chains, run by Stephen Cass, Batman, not OUR, the second biggest star in Sound of Freedom. Tim Ballard did participate, not as an OUR operative, but as a Homeland Security agent. OUR deployed a hoodwink strategy even before it operated officially. OUR took credit for an operation it did not conduct. The Honduras raid also disproves Ballard's claim that Homeland Security could not participate in raids to free child sex slaves unless there was a clear U.S. nexus or connection. No American pedophile sex tourists were arrested. The freed underage girls were not U.S. citizens. In the beginning, OUR was soliciting donations based on false information about its accomplishments. The Sound of Freedom's bogus storyline was concocted at least 10 years ago while Ballard was still a federal agent. The movie's version has it that the 2 children were kidnapped in Honduras, the boy was taken to Mexico, and there was an attempt to smuggle him into the United States, and the girl was smuggled into Colombia. The story tagline, after rescuing a boy from ruthless child traffickers, a federal agent learns the boy's sister is still captive, and decides to embark on a dangerous mission to save her. Like the movie version, the first version was not true either. It was contrived at least by early 2013. This first variant had the children abducted in the United States and smuggled into Mexico. Ballard told Glenn Beck he was working for the government combating child sex traffickers. A monster was taking a 5-year-old boy and his 10-year-old sister from the United States into Mexico for drug cartel parties for use as sex toys. The boy and girl were trafficked back and forth as sex slaves. Ballard said he went undercover, attended the sex party, and as soon as money changed hands, Navy SEALs dropped out of the ceiling and saved the children. The false brother-sister rescue narrative was documented on camera and told to Glenn Beck's nationwide television audience. Here are 2 variations back to back. Even then, Beck had a hard time getting the story straight.
This 5-year-old boy lived in America, and he and his sister were kidnapped in America and brought across the border. And brought across the border by this real monster. He's a human flesh trafficker. And he would bring these 2 children, brother and sister. She was maybe 10. He was 5. And he would bring them to these drug cartel parties in Mexico on the weekend. And they were horribly abused. They were used as sex toys.
Not long ago, a horrific video of a 5-year-old boy being sexually abused in the worst way was discovered by U.S. authorities. The boy was 5, and his 12-year-old sister. They had been kidnapped, and they had been trafficked back and forth between the U.S. and Mexico. Both were sex slaves to a monster of a man. Well, something happened. Divine Providence stepped in, and it took place at the U.S.-Mexico border. The boy was seen by a U.S. official who knew who he was, identified the boy in the video, and the boy was rescued from the monster.
In 2015, I published an article about OUR's Colombian takedown, later portrayed in The Sound of Freedom. It included Ballard's rescue story. At the time, there was no hint it would become the main plot for Sound of Freedom. In another 2 years, in 2017, it became the screenplay's central theme. 4 years later, and 1 year after The Sound of Freedom was shot, Ballard told then-President Donald Trump yet another version. This time, the kids are abducted in Mexico and brought to the United States.
a little boy, a Mexican boy who was kidnapped by an American trafficker by a child pornographer. He kidnapped Mexican children, brought them to San Bernardino County, where he had a makeshift studio, made child porn with these little children, 5 years old. This little boy was kidnapped in Mexicali, Mexico, where there was a wall, where there is a barrier, and so he was forced to take this little boy through the Calexico port of entry, and guess what? It worked.
After no television or cable channel wanted the abolitionists' reality series, hours of footage was cobbled together and turned into a 2016 movie, a docudrama, also titled The Abolitionists. The film only had a limited release beginning in May 2016. The film did not lack strong political support. It was endorsed and promoted by Utah Attorney General Sean Reyes, Governor Gary Herbert, Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz, Utah Senator Orrin Hatch, and Congresswoman Mia Love. Later, during a brief California release, The Hollywood Reporter quoted director Chet Thomas as saying, "Just like the book Uncle Tom's Cabin brought an awareness to slavery and helped start a civil war, this movie can instantly turn that dial of public awareness to sex trafficking." Also said there's also a narrative film in the works, tentatively called The Sound of Freedom, based on Ballard and Batman, from director Alejandro Monteverde and producer-director Eduardo Verástegui. The Abolitionists was a flop. The Los Angeles Times said, "A vital tale lacks punch." What the feature film that was in the works needed was some serious punch. That's what it got in the form of an injection of pure fiction, Ballard's dramatic rescue story. Compare the success of the two movies. One, a docudrama without Ballard's dramatic rescue tale, was a big failure. The other, a feature film with it, a huge success. Same story, different results. This is where The Sound of Freedom's fictitious plot was woven into the screenplay. Ballard and Verástegui were there, plus the two writers, Rod Barr and Alejandro Monteverde, who was also the director. A fly on the wall might have heard a very interesting discussion as they fabricated the storyline. The new version of the original false story became the film's main marketing tagline. After rescuing a boy from ruthless child traffickers, a federal agent learns the boy's sister is still captive, decides to embark on a dangerous mission to save her. With time running out, he quits his job and journeys deep into the Colombian jungle, putting his life on the line to free her from a fate worse than death. I broke the story a year ago that the Sound of Freedom plot is little more than a hoax. Nevertheless, since then, Angel Studios picked up the movie rights and created a box office mega hit. Audiences give Sound of Freedom a perfect score, and critics are giving it a still very good 72% on the Rotten Tomatoes scale. So far, I've seen no theater exit polling that would show how many attendees think the rescue really happened. My guess, most of them, as this next video clip indicates.
It is a film about the true life story of a man named Tim Ballard who dedicated his life to rescuing children from trafficking. And he picks two children who are really just are symbolic of so many hundreds and hundreds of thousands and millions of others, but a brother and sister who are abducted, taken away, and who in the film, and again, true story, he's working to rescue. He rescues one and then the other.
Most critics stop well short of calling the movie a fraud, instead using softer descriptives such as, "The embellishment is dramatically necessary for the story of this brother and sister. The films based on a true story details are highly exaggerated, even if the underlying factual claims are not. The movie takes literary license to portray a brother and sister rescued over time. And it's a pretty compelling watch, made even more so by the knowledge the story is rooted in reality." Thus, critics pull punches when they use expressions like embellished, exaggerated, and literary license liberty. What a reviewer or reporter concludes instead of doing research and fact-checking. If they fact-checked, they would also conclude the main Sound of Freedom storyline is 100% false. Near the time of the film's theatrical release, suddenly OUR, Angel Studios, and Ballard at least admitted the story is not entirely true. After months of silence on truthfulness, the admissions came in a flurry, clustered in a short time frame, as if coordinated. OUR's appeared on June 29th, near the time Ballard got the boot. Ballard's came the day before and the day of the premiere, and Angel Studios the next day. After two of my reports exposed the storyline problem, and after I'd made multiple but ignored inquiries of OUR's attorneys, this happens, suddenly, near the time of the movie's debut. June 29, OUR. Although Teddy's, Miguel's sister, is a person in real life, the story of Tim refusing to give up the search to find the one, as depicted in the film, is based on the true story of OUR's continual search for Gardy. July 3rd, Ballard. We showed up there, and there's this little boy. Things happened that make me look way more badass than I am. Those vague admissions refer to both the brother and the sister's rescues. Then the next day, question to Ballard. How much of the storyline is legit? He said, every bad guy is real, every kid is real, in order to protect identities. They did merge two stories together. The two main children you see in the film, these are real people. 85% of this is extremely accurate. And then July 5th, Angel Studios, while Miguel's sister is a real person, the storyline in the film depicting Tim's unwavering determination to find the one is based on the true pursuit of a child named Gardy. Now here is a video clip of Ballard's statement, the vaguest of the disclosures.
Right from the beginning, it says based on a true story. And if you've watched any films for any length of time, that word based means it could be very loosely based on the truth, or it could be really, really, really close to the truth and everything in between. How much of the storyline is legit, how it went down with you, and then how much of it is like Hollywood, they had to do this to where it looked cool and sounded cool?
I'll say this, every bad guy is real. Every kid is real. I can point you to them, I can show you them. And they had to cut the movie down, but there was like about 5-minute segment at the end that says, where are they now? Who are they? You see, I love that. I wish they didn't take it out, but it shows every bad guy, every good guy, every kid is accounted for. Now, in order to protect identities, they did merge two stories together. So you can find the two main children that you see the most in the film. I mean, these are real people, and they're still minors today. Like they're teenagers, but so we had to be very careful to tell just enough of their story, and they brought another true story, then merged them. But I'd say like 85% of it is extremely accurate.
Okay, well, I got to echo. I really wish at the end of the film there would have been a "Where are they now?" because I would have substantiated it a little bit more. Because obviously you're wondering, is that really the little girl? Is that really the little boy? Not.
Ballard never pinpoints the 15% inaccuracies. He blames the merging of stories on the screenwriters, plus does not say the search for Gardy is one of the merged stories, as OUR and Angel admit. He also puts fault on the writers for making him a hero.
Now, some things, of course, are exaggerated. They take liberties as they do, and I always told them, like, if you take liberties, you can, but I'm not going to pretend. If you make me look like way more amazing than what I am or what I did, I'm going to be honest about it.
Let's compare 3 truthfulness assessments. First, Ballard, who concedes that the movie is 15% false, or at least exaggerated, and OUR and Angel, in essence, are saying the second half of the main plot is false, or at least they would say borrowed from the Gardy search. They stick with the first part about the boy being kidnapped in Honduras and trafficked through Mexico. Then my assessment is that it's 100% plus false. The entire kidnap and rescue story, and then some. So how can a movie's promotional tagline and plot be more than completely untruthful? I'll get to that in a minute. But first, some history. How much leeway do screenwriters have? When a movie is billed as based on a true story, how much wiggle room is there? Beginning with the 1974 movie Macon County Line, a feature film that pretty much annihilated the tagline based on a true story, writer Jim Kenneth wrote its history. He said that 1974 B-movie changed the way Hollywood, television, and book publishers think about and sell the truth. Confused and frustrated by a tepid response, the movie's producer yanked the film out of circulation and modified the posters and opening credits to include a new tagline, based on a true story. Re-released, it became one of the highest-grossing drive-in films of all time, thanks to a little white lie. The history goes on to say that the power of the based on a true story claim was undeniable. Over the years that followed, the tagline, as well as variants based on actual events and the slightly less adamant, inspired by actual events, became ubiquitous. It was estimated that claiming a film that recounted actual events that happened to real people could effectively double or triple a picture's box office take.
And you read a lot of see a lot of films at the beginning. It says, based on a true story. This film is the true story, and I had the privilege of being one of the many executive producers of this film. What I love about this film is that it takes on a subject that's so difficult to talk about, but it turns it into the true story that it is. I mean, there's some details in there you and I both know that people think it's a manipulation to make the movie work, and it's exactly as it happened.
Well, I was surprised at the courage they had to tell certain pieces of the story that I thought were too crazy because they're true, but I thought I don't want to look like we're being sensational. But the truth is, sometimes sensational things are true.
Sound of Freedom featured a real superhero.
Here in the United States, we've had 20 years of amazing superhero movies, but it's time for a true story, a real superhero movie.
Steve Jobs once said, "The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision and values for the generation which is to come." And at Angel Studios, we are all storytellers. And what are the values that we want to see for our children and our grandchildren? Stories that are true, honest, noble, just, authentic, lovely, admirable, and excellent.
Back to the question. How can a plotline be more than 100% false? The Sound of Freedom's promotional storyline and the movie itself are used to solicit donations and investments. Utah's Communications Fraud Statute and the SEC's Regulation CF say that marketing statements must not only be truthful, but also cannot omit material facts. When money is solicited, it's not enough to just be fully truthful. The Utah Code says it's illegal to defraud another by means of false representations or material omissions. The SEC Reg CF prohibits an issuer to make any untrue statement of a material fact or to omit a material fact necessary in order to make the statements made, in the light of the circumstances under which they were made, not misleading. Ballard, OUR, and Angel have been using the movie's storyline to solicit donations, and Angel Studios has also used it to solicit investments in the movie. What does OUR and Angel fail to say? Could any of the following be material omissions? That the brother and sister depicted in the main plot were not kidnapped, that the siblings were not trafficked as sex slaves, that Tim Ballard did not rescue either the brother or the sister, that Ballard did not need to quit his HSI job because he could not work cases with no U.S. victim or perpetrator, that neither Tim Ballard nor OUR conducted or oversaw the Colombian operation. They merely assisted, along with another U.S. nonprofit, which actually did more work than OUR, that many OUR and movie statistics are unproven, misleading, or outright false. Angel Studios knew before it released The Sound of Freedom about Ballard's reputation for untruthfulness, as shown in a series of text messages I obtained. The messages were exchanged between Angel Studios officers and a former OUR operative. Those involved Neil and Jordan Harmon, Liz Ellis, and the former OUR operative. The messages began when there were still reports of an ongoing criminal investigation into Tim Ballard and OUR. A timeline is on the next 2 slides showing how the text messages relate to the criminal investigation. On March 28th, the Davis County attorney issued a declination letter to OUR attorneys saying the investigation was over without criminal charges. It was not made public. OUR would have told Angel Studios about it. 2 days later, Variety reported Angel Studios acquired worldwide distribution rights for The Sound of Freedom. The two are clearly connected. On April 4th, a text message from former OUR operative to Angel Studios. OUR has been under investigation. I don't want it to hurt Angel Studios. The reply, it's going to be a controversial project for sure. We're not promoting OUR. We're doing it to raise awareness to protect more kids. Then on April 13th, there was a 1+ hour Zoom video call with the former operative and Jeff and Neil Harmon. The operative told them, Ballard is a fraud. He claims to have had visions where Abraham Lincoln, Nephi, and Moroni appear to him. He made up facts about some of his rescues. The former operative was reportedly told by the Harmons they had dozens of complaints about Ballard. "We know Tim is crazy," one purportedly said. "The movie is about the kids." On April 30th, the former operative, after watching a Sound of Freedom screener, texted Jeff Harmon, "I'm not sure about releasing the film. Sounds like you're already moving ahead. I did not find it factual in the least. I'm saddened to see how it painted Tim as a Superman. I think he is a total fraud and misguided. I hope it does not backfire on Angel Studios." On May 1st, Jeff Harmon replied, "I understand your concerns. We've gone very deep on the allegations. We're satisfied we can go forward. Lots of news on that front coming soon." He did not say what the news was. "As for the film, we will have lots of blog posts talking about what's real and what's dramatized." Then on May 12th, Jeff Harmon texted the former operative, "The investigation was dropped. The text included a link to a Deseret News exclusive story. Investigation closed into Operation Underground Railroad." The next day, Angel Studios announced via YouTube that The Sound of Freedom would premiere on July 4th. Clearly, again, a link between the two. Next, I'll show images of the actual texts. On April 4th, the former operative sent a text message to Liz Ellis, Angel Studios' chief operating officer. "I saw that you're distributing Sound of Freedom. OUR has been under investigation for a while. Last I heard in December, they still were, at least. I just don't want it to hurt Angel Studio." Liz Ellis responded, "It's going to be a controversial project for sure. We're not promoting OUR. We're doing it to raise awareness to protect more kids." On April 12th, an Angel Studios employee connected the former OUR operative with Jeff Harmon. Harmon texted, "I'd love to meet up at your earliest convenience." And they set up time for a Zoom meeting the next day. Then arrangements were made during the Zoom meeting for the operative to view a Sound of Freedom screener online. And the operative responded, "Thanks so much. I will watch it tonight." After watching the screener, the former operative texted Jeff Harmon, "I really am not sure about releasing the film. Sounds like you're already moving forward with it next week. I didn't find it to be factual in the least, and those pieces that were maybe some ounce of truth were so exaggerated. I am sad to see how it painted Tim as a Superman. I think he's a total fraud and misguided. Then skipping ahead, I hope it doesn't backfire on Angel Studios because I hope your intentions are good." On May 1st, Jeff Harmon replied, "I understand the concerns. We've gone very deep on the allegations. We're satisfied we can go forward. Lots of news on that front coming soon. As for the film, we will have lots of blog posts talking about what's real and what's dramatized, and documentary footage from each of the rescues the film was based on." And the reply to that, "Sounds great. Good to hear." Then on May 12th, another Jeff Harmon text. "The investigation was dropped. Davis County Attorney's Office closes investigation into Operation Underground Railroad." And the reply, "That's great." Repeating what Jeff Harmon said in the text, "As for the film, we will have lots of blog posts talking about what's real and what's dramatized, and documentary footage from each of the rescues the film was based on." As near as I could tell, that didn't happen. Next, an in-depth look at Angel's and OUR's admissions about the jungle rescue depicted in the movie. You'll recall, Angel said, "In real life, Tim did lead a team of operatives who posed as doctors on a mission in a jungle along the border of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, a few years after Operation Triple Take, in their pursuit of finding Gardy." And OUR, the story of Tim refusing to give up the search to find the one, as depicted in the film, is based on the true story of OUR's continual search for Gardy. Two problems with this disclosure. The Gardy search is nothing like the film's child sex slave rescue. Perhaps even worse for OUR and Angel Studios, it opens up a Gardy search can of worms which casts even more aspersions on OUR and Tim Ballard. The Gardy search admissions could blow up in OUR's and Angel Studios' faces. Any thorough fact-checking by reporters could pull the pin on a grenade even more explosive than Tim Ballard's Sound of Freedom myth. Here's another timeline, this one about Gardy. On December 6, 2009, 2-year-old Gardy Marty was apparently kidnapped from an LDS church parking lot in Haiti. On January 12th, a massive earthquake rocked Haiti. On January 26th, Utah's Deseret News reported that a $150,000 ransom was demanded. The FBI investigated. Gardy had dual Haitian and American citizenship. A suspect was very quickly jailed, but he did not confess. Tim Ballard began OUR search in February 2014, 4 years after the disappearance.
So this is Guest Marty. He's a bishop in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And the little boy, Gardy, his son, was born in Utah in St. George. But at the time living in Haiti, this little boy was kidnapped and he was trafficked. Kidnapped from the church parking lot. The pictures you're seeing here were taken just a couple weeks before he was taken. Taken from the LDS church parking lot and thrown into a trafficking situation. Gardy's been moved around quite a bit, but everywhere we go looking for him, we end up rescuing more children, taking us into places we never would have gone otherwise. We haven't found him yet, but we are closer than ever. We are putting more resources into this investigation than ever, and we're going to find him, and we're going to find him really soon.
3 Gardy kidnapping suspects were arrested and jailed: Carlos Bristol, V. Rose Presor, and Wilson Bristol. All 3 were members of Gesno Marty's LDS ward. Carlos Bristol was a returned Mormon missionary. While in jail, he was tortured to force him to disclose Gardy's whereabouts. That did not work. OUR would turn to a psychic for help, which led to the mission OUR and Angel Studios say inspired the Sound of Freedom plot. The psychic, Janet Russin, directed OUR's so-called jungle. It really was not a jungle. OUR's jungle search for Gardy. Russin was also a director for Tim Ballard's wife's adoption nonprofit. 2 years ago, Vice News reported on the psychic-directed Gardy rescue attempt. I followed with my own detailed look. On that Gardy rescue mission, Ballard did play the role of a doctor as cover. This next video clip shows some of the highlights and, at the end, the lowlight of that mission. This video that OUR has yet to release shows Psychic Russin, face blurred and referred to only as an informant, pointing to a remote mountainous region on a map, claiming Gardy was being held there as a labor slave. Russin also accompanied Ballard on flights over the target area, in preparation for taking in a convoy of real and fake medical personnel, undercover police officers armed with concealed weapons, and OUR strike force members. The caravan encountered rugged terrain on the way to buildings prearranged for headquarters and a medical clinic. Ballard, posing as a doctor along with the real ones, provided cover for their actual purpose, searching for Gardy. Marty came along, but Ballard had not told him that intel from the psychic indicated his kidnapped son was there. A helicopter was standing by to take Gardy to freedom. Ballard said they encountered more than 28 kids who were there as slave workers. Villagers initially welcomed the medical care, but grew increasingly skeptical, fearing the visitors were really after the area's natural resources. Native residents, as Ballard explains it, formed a mob, armed with machetes and shotguns, intent on stealing OUR's vehicles and killing the strike force. Ballard pointed to piles of rocks that he said were known to be used by natives to stone people to death. We just prayed our way through this one, Ballard said, but they were still driven out by gunpoint, he said, although no video shows that. On the way out, Ballard told Marty they were really there in the belief they would rescue Gardy. He wept, realizing the trip was in vain. Not only did they leave without Gardy, OUR also chose not to rescue any of the child labor slaves. How closely does the Gardy so-called jungle search story match the Sound of Freedom's closing scenes that show Ballard rescuing a kidnapped child sex slave and killing her captor? Angel Studios does concede that Tim's jungle search in the movie was instead very loosely inspired by his organization's real-life search into a jungle on the border of the Dominican Republic and Haiti to look for Gardy. Ballard cannot bring himself to be that clear, instead obfuscating, not admitting outright he did not kill a Colombian drug lord. He leaves the impression that today there is still a hotbed of child sex trafficking deep in a jungle. But where? Colombia? Haiti?
As you get towards the end of the movie, it gets really exciting. I got to be very careful. In fact, I don't want to even tell you the very, very end because I don't know how to do it without being a total plot spoiler. But I'll say that the place that I go is real. It's a real place. It's a target location still, so it's not something we would actually tell you where it is. And and the producers may hate me for saying this, but I want to be transparent. A lot of things happened that made me look way more badass than I am in the last 15 minutes of the movie. Okay, so I'm not going to say what those things are because I'll be giving up. But I'll address it later. But the most important part of that scene is the place is real, and there's still kids in that place, and we still are making efforts to infiltrate and make rescues there. So,
even though Ballard does not use Gardy's name, does not say exactly what made him look badass, and says the jungle location is secret, by examining Ballard's murky admission through a crystal ball, he's talking about a secret location in Haiti, not Colombia. A source familiar with the area says that to this day, OUR is still following the psychic's directions, still searching there for Gardy. That ongoing operation may be part of the plot for Sound of Freedom 2, which has already been scripted and awaits production.
They wrote this second Sound of Freedom, and that's even better script than the first. The first is pretty darn good.
Can I ask what that's about?
The second one?
Yes.
Haiti.
It's about Haiti.
Yep. It's not so much Sound of Freedom 2. Okay, it's just this is the next mission that he did.
I'll conclude this report with two conflicting messages, one by Jim Caviezel, citing big numbers and warning that every child is in danger of being abducted into the sex trade, followed by conspiracy theory expert Mike Rothschild, who cautions not to be taken in by bogus statistics.
So a mother and father should be able to protect their kids. They should want to protect their kids. And people don't realize 100,000 children are abducted and trafficked in the United States. Forget other countries.
No,
just in the United States.
300,000.
That high.
300,000 are abducted, are lured into the sex trade a year. For a mother to sit there and say, oh, I just don't want to see that film. Well, if this gets to your backyard, and it is getting to your backyard, and it is in many people's backyards, and if you go to over 300,000 children a year are taken, aren't you responsible at some point to at least learn what to do? Where are they? And you learn that in the film.
These films are created out of moral panics. They're created out of bogus statistics. They're created out of fear. And with something like Sound of Freedom, it specifically is looking at QAnon concepts of these child trafficking rings that are run by the high-level elites, and only people like Tim Ballard and only people like Jim Caviezel, and by extension, only people like the ticket buyer can help bring these trafficking rings down. So there's a very participatory element. You're not just going to see a movie, you're just killing 2 hours on a hot day. You are helping bring down these pedophile rings and save children. Now, it's not true, but it's a very comforting and it's a very warm feeling to have.
That's the end. Thanks for watching. For comments and suggested corrections, email at lpacker636@gmail.com.